So let's practice Excel 2013 text to columns. What happened to me one time was I was given a list of hundreds and hundreds of different people who I was to actually honor with certificates. Now, when I was given the list of names, it was given to me all in one column because the person who emailed it to me did not know how to use Excel. No worries. We can break these names up because what I wanted to do is to break these names up into different columns so that I can pull the names into Word or Publisher using a mail merge, which would make things a lot more faster and automated. So how do we break these names up if you get something all jumbled in like this? We can find this feature called text to columns. We click on the Data tab, click on Text to Columns. We need to select our data first. So let's select our data, Text to Columns, and right now we have the first choice, which is delimited. Characters such as commas or tabs separate each field. Yes, indeed, we have a comma separating the first name and last name, so click on Next. And what is that symbol that's separating the words? It's a comma, so we choose comma. And right away, in terms of the preview, we see that we have successfully separated the first and last names. So we're ready to finish. Click on Finish. So we see that we have successfully separated the first and last name. And now the rest is easy. I can right click on row 1, I can insert a row, I can call this last name or last, I can call this first, and if I were to do a mail merge, I can just choose either the first name or last name fields, and when it comes to actually making a real certificate, I would say congratulations to first name, then last name, for excellence in yada yada. Alright, so hopefully you can now separate the information depending on a certain delimiter symbol by going to that wonderful Data tab. Look for that Text to Columns button. Superb. Let's take a look at a new Excel 2013 feature called Flash Fill. We begin with some information, and notice how the first and last name are mixed in this column A. Previously, we'd actually use text to columns to break this apart, but now we can just type in Bob, enter, Jerry, and as I'm typing Jerry, I see that Excel is automatically guessing what I'm about to do. Press enter. The same for the last name. Type in Dole, enter, Smith, and before I even finish typing, I can just press enter, and I have everything. The same goes with domain names. If I just want to get the domain only, hotmail.com, enter, GM, I can just press enter, and Flash Fill automatically guesses the rest. Now the thing about Flash Fill is, if you delete certain parts and you want to try to get Flash Fill, it won't appear unless you actually delete everything first. So delete everything, and then you will once again get your Flash Fill options. Let's practice the COUNTIF function in Excel 2013. Begin by typing in a number of different student names, gender, as well as their grades. So what if we want to find out how many actual males are in this class? We could type in equals COUNTIF bracket. The range is all the possible genders, comma, the criteria. Notice the range here is from B2 to B8. This is column B, row 2. That's the beginning, all the way to B8. So that's the end. And the criteria you put within double quotes. So here, comma is the separating the next argument. Double quote, we want to look for all the number of males. So I'm going to choose M within double quotes. close your bracket, press enter, and you can see there's 3 males. 1, 2, 3. Now if I actually change one of these males to a female, enter, notice how this COUNTIF formula automatically updates. This is very useful. Now if you go back to the formula bar, if I change this to lowercase m, it still works. So this is not case sensitive. I could change this to the number of females, F, and you can see there's 5 females. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is particularly useful if your list is very long. Now let's try another application of COUNTIF. What if we want to count the total number of students who fail? Equals COUNTIF, bracket, here's my range, drag it, comma. So not only can we choose text, we can also choose values. I'm going to say less than 50, double quote, and bracket. So this is a less than sign. It's like Pac-Man chomping. So less than sign, less than 50. Press enter. We have 2 people who failed, which would be here as well as here. So what if we want to change it to greater than? So here in the formula bar, I'm going to change it to, let's see how many people got greater than or equals to 85. So greater than or equals to 85, press enter. So we see that 3 people have grades greater than or equal to 85. And if I change another student to, say, a grade of 99, notice how the COUNTIF formula automatically updates. Let's practice some pivot tables in Excel 2013. Now you can actually download this pivot table.xlsx from hoodandkim.com/share. So you can find, if you visit here, you can actually download the pivot table by typing in pivot table-table.xlsx. So this is the actual website address. Alright, now that you have this pivot table, we go to Insert, and you go to Pivot Table. This is a very powerful feature in Excel, and it's used a lot by accountants. So the pivot table, the data range, is going to be my actual table. You can just confirm that it's all highlighted. Notice how pivot table information almost repeats. So the idea of a salesperson, Karen Lee, has a number of transactions. She made a sale in India, and that's the region that she's sold it to. Whereas the account number is just like a transaction number. There's the amounts for each month, each sale is made. Okay, so we have the actual table. We're going to click on New Worksheet. Click on OK. And once you click on OK, you can see that we created a new sheet, and we see some pivot table fields on the right. Now if I click everything, what ends up happening is you get all that information summarized in a very complicated table. But the nice thing about pivot tables is that you can actually choose just the information you're thinking about. So for example, if all I'm interested in is how each salesperson did, I'm going to unclick on country, account, and month. And you can see that Cindy Edwards has made $3,700 in sales, whereas other salespeople made either more or less. Now the nice thing about pivot tables is not only can you see this information, you can also hit the drop-down box and sort things. So if I sort more sort options, you can even sort by descending by the sum of the order amount. So click on OK. Now you can see who the top salespeople are. Charlie Niagara deserves some Employee of the Month award. And this is the way it goes, and depending on your philosophy of who you should fire, maybe this person needs to be let go. Alright, let's what if we want to show the actual month? You can see now we see each salesperson's performance for each month. Now the nice thing about pivot tables is we see this information in either rows or columns. So when I click on the month and I drag it to the columns, you can see that the look and feel and organization of your pivot table changes. So now we see the month in the actual columns, and you can see how each salesperson's did. Now if I were to drag the month back to rows and drag the salesperson back to the columns, you can see that the information is just organized in a slightly different manner. And it really takes a lot of practice playing with these options. If I chose country, and I'm not worried about the salesperson, I just want to know how each country did, you can just focus on the country and the order amount, and you can see that we can sort by the descending sum of order amount. And if the question is which country did the best in terms of business, we can see that China had the most business. So these kind of analytical questions can be very useful for making business decisions. That's why pivot tables are so powerful. It really takes a lot of practice to be able to play around dragging information between rows and columns, playing around with your filtering and sorting, your sorting options. And I should conclude by saying that pivot tables are possible when you have detailed logs of each transaction, when you keep track of the salesperson, the country, the order amount, the month, and all these transactions in detail. Excel can crunch out this information and display it in a more logical and summarized and analytical way. In this Excel 2013 tutorial, let's practice understanding absolute versus relative cell referencing. I have to admit this is one of the concepts that are more confusing. So if you can understand this difficult concept, consider yourself among the elite, and perhaps you will be the honored candidate who will stand out and be exalted to be a corporate secretary. Who knows? So we begin by typing in some numbers here. And from a previous video, you know how to add up find the sum of these values. You can type in equals sum bracket, highlight, and then press enter, or you can even close the parenthesis and press enter. So we find the sum of these numbers, and I made it bold just so you can see it a bit better, and it's 15. Furthermore, we can click on this auto sum button, and we know that already. And for those of you who remember AutoFill, you can even drag the bottom right corner and pull it out, and this is fine and dandy. Alright, so let me press delete here. Okay, let's get to the topic here. So what we're doing here is when we copy this, right click, copy. When you copy a formula, and we know that we're using a formula here, the key idea is that Excel is not copying the number, it's actually copying the formula, it's copying the pattern. So for example, if I copy the number 15 here and I paste it here, let's say paste it here, what do you expect the value to be? So beginners might say, oh, you copy the number 15, it's going to be 15. I'm going to press Control V. Are you surprised why it's 18? Interesting. What's going to happen, what you can do is to investigate, is to go back and look at the formula. The formula here says equal sum B1 colon B3. B1 is here, B3 is here, colon means add up all the numbers in between, including the endpoints. 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 plus 9 is 18. Okay, now this makes sense. I see. So when we copy the formula and pasted the formula here, we're pasting the pattern. We're not pasting the value, pasting the pattern. What was that pattern? The pattern happened to be, so let me just delete this. The pattern happened to be from this location here that I'm pasting, it's going to add up 3 numbers above it. 1, 2, 3. That's the pattern. A1 is here, A3 is here, so it's going to add up 3 numbers above it. Now what if I copy this, Control C, and paste it 1 to the right, 1 down? What do you expect to happen? Let's try it. Control V. Whoa, why is it 15? Let's think about it. You look at the formula, B2 to B4. So B2 is here, B3 is here, B4 is here. So we're basically copying the pattern being adding the three numbers above it. So the three numbers above here is nothing plus 9 plus 6. So nothing plus 9 plus 6 is 15. Oh, so that makes sense. Now what if I were to copy this, Control C, and paste it over, let's say, down here? What do you expect the number to be? Can you guess? Control V. It's 10. Why? Because we're copying the pattern being adding up the three numbers above it. Nothing plus 10 is going to be 10. See, C3 is over here. And then C5 is over here. So when you're adding up these three numbers, we get 10. This makes sense. Okay. So this in itself is confusing, but let's try to get even more confusing. By the way, if you understood this, congratulations. You might have to rewind a couple times to understand, but here we go. Now, the idea of when you copy a cell formula and you paste it, we're using something called relative cell referencing. Relative in the sense that as you copy and paste the formulas, the actual pattern gets pasted over. So if I copy this formula, adding up the three numbers above it, and I move this down and right one cell, so one cell to the right, one cell down, we're copying that pattern. So all the columns and row gets shifted relative to its previous location. Now let's try absolute. So the idea here is I want to make the formula, you click back in the formula bar, with dollar signs. Dollar sign means that these, the column A, row 1, column A, row 3, never changes. So basically we're going to still sum up 2 plus 5 plus 8. However, we're always talking about these cells. So press enter. We're always talking specifically about this particular column, A, as well as row 1 all the way to row 3. So we're always talking about these three numbers. So when I copy this and I paste it over one to the right, one down, we're always going to get 15. It doesn't matter, I can paste it here, we get 15. So the idea with dollar sign is absolute cell referencing, which means that we're not going to change that particular column or row. Now here's where it gets even more confusing. What if we only make absolute the actual column? So here $A means the column is fixed, but the row is still relative. So what's happening is we're fixing the column. What does that mean? As we copy this and I paste it one to the right, one down, can you guess what's going to happen? Well, we know that the column is fixed, so we're always talking about numbers in this column. However, the row got shifted down by 1. So instead of adding up 1, 2, 3, we're going to add up 1, 2, 3. So these three cells. So we're going to add up not in column B, but 1, 2, 3, column A. So let's paste it. Wow, it's trying to actually add these three numbers, which is 5 plus 8 plus 15. As you can see, to clarify things, go back to the formula. A2, $A, you can see A never changed. However, 2 to 4. So from talking about column A, from row 2, 3, 4. So that's what's happening. So we shifted down one row, but the column remained the same. Alright, so let's try one more, just to make sure that you're thoroughly confused. Alright, so let's be the angry instructor and make this impossible, make your brain explode. So what if we just fix the actual rows? So the column can change, but the rows never change. What does that mean? So let's try copying this formula and pasting it here. What's going to happen? So we know that the column can change, so we are talking about column B. However, the rows cannot change, so therefore, even though we go down one, we're still talking about these three rows. So I would say that the column can change. So we're talking about column B, but we're still talking about these three numbers. So therefore, we'll add up these three numbers. Is it 18? Yes, it is. All right, for those of you who like to blow up your brains, try thinking about what the result would be if you stuck a dollar sign in front of the column and stuck the other dollar sign in front of the row. All right, I think that's enough confusion for today, but if you do understand this might help you troubleshoot some more advanced problems in the future. Congratulations, you now have a little bit more insight about absolute versus relative self-referencing. In this Excel 2013 tutorial, we'll practice the VLOOKUP formula. Begin by typing in some information. We have some students, Bob, Sue, Jane, Henry, with respective grades of 70, 55, 30, and 90. Imagine having a grade table where you define the actual key change points. 0 is an F, and anything between is going to be an F until 50, where we have a new grade of C minus. And if a student hits 60, their grade is a C, and then etc. all the way to an A. Now, of course, you can feel free to change these values. So the idea of qualifying to the next level, it doesn't have to be grade letters. It can be any kind of idea of qualifications, whether it be beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert. Somehow the idea of a VLOOKUP comes in handy. So how do we actually connect our values with the lookup table? We click on the cell beside the number 70, and we type in the formula equals VLOOKUP bracket, and you can see that Excel gives you a hint. There's three parts to this formula. The first part is the lookup value. So you actually click on the number, on the actual value, 70, which is B2, this column B, row 2, comma, the actual table array, the table being the actual change, the actual values that change, and as well as the corresponding result that we want to spit back, comma. Finally, we return the actual column. Do we want column 1 or do we want column 2? I don't want to spit back a number, I want to spit back the actual letter. So you spit back column 2, end bracket, and press enter. Notice how the number 70 does fall into the C+ range, and if you actually change the number 70 to a 75, it remains a C+. If you change it to a 65, it becomes a C. If you change it to a 99, it becomes an A. If you change it to a 33, it becomes an F. So the idea of using a formula is very powerful, because as soon as you make changes, the actual lookup result automatically spits back the letter. It doesn't have to be a letter, it can be a pass-fail note, whether the student passes or fails. Alright, so let me just change it back to 72. We get a C+. Now this is kind of painful to have to do this over and over again. I could, if I wanted to, type in equals VLOOKUP bracket, the actual number, so click here, comma, highlight the table, comma, I want to return the second column. Press enter. This is kind of painful. So some bright students might actually go click here and drag out the bottom right corner, but something messes up. So in a previous tutorial we talked about absolute versus relative self-referencing. So this is where we actually do need to use this idea. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z. So let's go back to the first formula, which became pretty darn close. So the thing is that as you drag the bottom right corner and as we attempt to try to do autofill, the problem is that, let's try it. You can see that right now the lookup table is A8 to B13. A8 referring to this corner, B13 referring to this corner. From here to here is our lookup table, and this lookup table never changes in location. However, when we actually drag it down, because Excel is using relative self-referencing here by default, look what happens at this last lookup table. A11 is here to B16 is
the whole lookup table is getting shifted down. That's the problem. So therefore, I'm going to highlight this and go here, and I'm going to lock this lookup table. So as you click here and click up in the formula bar and add all these dollar signs, it basically means we don't want to change any columns or rows ever for the lookup table. Press enter. And now, as we actually lock the columns and rows for the lookup table, and you drag the bottom right corner, all the actual corresponding letter grades are now correct. So hopefully you got some good practice here with the lookup table. This is one of those common type of questions that you get in the technical interview about your Excel skills, just to separate the beginners from those who actually have some experience with Excel. Congratulations.
Let's practice the COUNTA Formula in Excel 2013. Imagine having a sports academy where we want to keep track of attendance, and you want to recognize certain students with really good attendance at a certain percentage. So we have different students here, and we have different days of the month, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and normally there's between 28 and 31 days in a month, but for now, just for the sake of simplicity, we'll just work with 5 days. For every day they show up, and we just type in a number 1 here, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, is there a quick way of tallying how many times they showed up? Well, let's click here in total, and let's type in equals count A. Equals count A, you can see Excel gives you a hint here, counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Now, this is not empty, this is not empty, and this is not empty, regardless of whether it's a number or some text. So here I'm going to say bracket. I'm going to highlight the range, and let's see how many things from day 1 to day 5 are not empty. Press enter. It's 3. Now the nice thing about Excel is if you use AutoFill, it figures out that we're trying to apply the corresponding rows to the same question. How many of these 5 days are non-empty? And so we have a COUNTA formula here, here, here. You can verify the formula in the formula bar. Now, what about the total number of days? I'm going to say equals count A, bracket, and as for number of days, I'm going to just highlight this row here, B2 to F2. So this is the total number of days, and I'm just going to press enter. You can see that if I use the COUNTA formula here, it's going to definitely give me 5 days because each of these labels are not empty. Enter. So we have 5 days. Alright, so now let's figure out the average. By the way, if you do want to drag this down, it's going to kind of mess up because, as you learned from a previous video, if we always want things to adjust correspondingly, we just leave things as is. However, if we want things to be fixed, in this case we want to always talk about this particular row, and we want the B2 to F2 values never to change, we use absolute cell referencing, which is the dollar symbols here. Press enter. So now when we drag out AutoFill, we're always talking about this row here. So the number of days is always the same. Let's figure out the average. The average would be equals to average, bracket, the total number of days divided by the number of days here. And so the average is 0.6. We can autofill again. And let's just highlight the average here and change it to a percentage by clicking on this percentage symbol. And thus we have figured out the percentage of each person's attendance. And we can give awards to certain peoples. Let's practice a financial formula here in Excel 2013. It's the PMT function, which is very useful because it allows you to calculate monthly payment. So whether we're talking about a mortgage payment or a car payment, this is very good for actually thinking about our future. So we type in some information here. In this case, we're talking about a home, trying to borrow $200,000 from the bank. We'll imagine the interest rate is 0.05, which is 5%, and the number of years to pay back. We'll say the number of years to pay back is 20 years. Notice how the number of months to
to pay back is 240, this value is equals to the previous cell, which is B5, times 12, because there's 12 months in a year. Now, how do we figure out the monthly payment? Let's use a PMT function. I could type in equals PMT, but sometimes it's easy to forget what each of these mean. So I'm going to actually click on formulas and use a financial formula and look for the letter P. PMT. PMT. So when you look at the rate field, it says here in the bottom, 6% rate divided by 4 for quarterly payments. So following this pattern, I'm going to click on 5%, which is here. I'm going to click on the 0.05, divided by 12. We're not interested in quarterly payments, we're interested in monthly payments, therefore we divide by 12. Let's focus on the number of periods, NPER. The number of periods is going to be 240, because we're going to pay back in 240 different months. As for the PV, the present value, this is how much we owe. I'm going to click on 200,000. Now click on OK, and we have monthly payments of $1,319.91. Alright, so here we have the amount 1,319, and if we change the number of years to 10 years, you want to pay off the mortgage in 10 years, you can see the monthly payments gets a lot higher. What about 30 years? And of course the payments become a lot more reasonable. Now if I actually try this one more time, so we have a formula here, you can see equals payment, the actual rate divided by 12 months. We have B6. B6 is the number of months to pay back. And then we have B3, which is the actual amount borrowed. If you type in a negative sign here, negative B3, so negative B3, enter, and then instead of getting the red amount with brackets, which represents negative, we can now have a positive number amount. So hopefully this helps with you being able to figure out how much your monthly payments will be, whether you're borrowing for your house or a car. Let's practice screenshots here in Excel 2013. You should have a print screen button if you have a PC. That takes a screenshot of the entire screen. So if I were to actually show my messy desktop here and press print screen button and then go back to Excel, and if I paste it, I should see the entire desktop, which is nice because it's nice to grab pictures so that you can paste it and use it, perhaps for documentation or tutorials. We also have the ability to create screenshots within Excel. If you go to Insert tab, there should be this little tiny icon that looks like a camera. You hit the little drop down box here, and there's something called screen clipping. So if I take a screen clipping, it minimizes Excel and allows you to take a screenshot of whatever windows behind Excel. So I can highlight this, and I could alternatively highlight even pause the video on YouTube, or even the start button on Windows. So here you can see I just copied a random part of my screen from my desktop, and this is very useful. Now some people actually use other third-party software such as Snagit or some other free alternative. But we do have the ability to take screen clippings right within Excel. Now what if you want to take a screenshot of Excel itself? You can have two Excel windows open, and by going Insert Screen Screen Clipping, it allows you to minimize one Excel window, and the other Excel window will be right behind it. If you already have some windows open, if you go to Insert and you go to this little screenshot window, rather than using screen clipping, which is used for cutting out a certain region, clipping a certain region, you can actually hover over the window that's open. So in this case I have Notepad open with the words Hello World on it, and I click on it, and you can see that it automatically grabs the entire window, and this is quite useful.
Let's practice using the image editor here in Excel 2013. We go to Insert, Pictures, you browse for your pictures and you find one off your computer, and then it should insert a picture here. If the picture is too large, you can click on it and drag out a corner. When you see the two little arrows, click and drag it to make it a bit smaller. And this is good. This is my beautiful son, and he looks like he's having fun here. And notice how if you double click the picture, we automatically appear in the Format tab. And there's many things we can do here. I'll show you some of the more important things, in my opinion. There's this thing called crop. So if you click on crop, this button at the top part here, you can see that there are some black lines here. And if I want to just focus on his head, I can actually pull up these lines until you just get the right region. So I'm just going to focus on his face here. And then when you actually click off of the picture here, you can see this picture is cropped. Now the nice thing about cropping an image is that whenever you click on the image and recrop it, you can always get back what you are missing. So you can always get back the original, and that's nice. What else can we do with our picture? You can remove the background. Now this picture is not ideal for this technique, but if I click on Remove Background, it tries to clean out the background, but you can see that this only works well if the background is very similar in color, such as the green screen effect. But I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo that. I don't want to remove the background. Let's go to the Format tab here. Let's look at some other options here. You can click on Corrections, and you can see there's some different brightness and contrast and softer or sharper images. Color, you can add some color to it. You can play around with some different artistic effects. You can compress image, which somehow reduces the quality of the image so that the file size is smaller. And then you can always reset the picture to discarding all the formatting we've done. I like these borders here. You can just hover over these and click on it to apply these. There's even a little drop-down box here. You can see some more interesting effects. There's some manual borders. You can set the weight, how thick the border is, and the colors as well. Picture effects. You can just have some nice little shadows here and things like that. Just fancy dancy stuff. And you can even make your picture be a part of some kind of SmartArt graphics type thing. So it's something else to explore later on. And you can even rotate the picture, and there's even more rotation options. However, if you click on your picture, you should see a small little rotation icon here, and that's probably the easiest way to rotate. And of course, if you actually hold down the Shift button while rotating, you'll notice that it rotates in a chunky way, and this might be useful for rotating things just the way you want it to be. Alright, so have fun playing with images.
Let's practice inserting some clip art, smart art, and shapes in Excel 2013. Begin by going to Insert, and if you choose Online Pictures, we're talking about some nice online clip art. You can search using Bing or even Office.com. If I were to search for a cat, and we double-click the image, and we now have some nice cat pictures. Now there's other ways to get pictures as well. You might want to use some other search engines such as Google to find some pictures, and that is one way of getting some nice graphics. Let's toy around with the idea of a SmartArt. So let's go to Insert, and let's choose a SmartArt graphic, which is this option here. Click here, and you can see there's many different nice diagrams which can really add to a professional look. So if I were to just choose this kind of vertical chevron list, for example, but you can see there's many others that might suit your needs. You might have to scroll through all of this. You click on this and click on OK, And what we can write here as an example is click here, and you can type in fear, and then fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and you can even press you can even click on the left here, which is pretty friendly for typing in the contents here. If I press Shift Tab, it actually pulls the indentation back one level. I'll write suffering. Can you guess who we're talking about here? I'm going to say, don't be afraid. So in this little sub-tab, I'm going to say, don't be afraid, be brave. And in the anger sub-tab, I'll write, don't be mad, we'll say, be glad. And I'll say, love, be not hateful, love instead. And you can see what's happening here. You can even press Enter, and you can press Tab, and then be happy, don't suffer. You can see that we're building up the list very conveniently using the Enter key, using Tab and Shift Tab. So hopefully you can apply this knowledge to creating other SmartArt graphics as well. So we click off of the actual SmartArt graphic, and if you hover over it, you can see that you can click on an edge, and you can press Control Z if you accidentally drag out the wrong part. But when you click off of it and you click on the side edge here, you're moving one thing, which is what we do not want to do. But if you actually click on the right part of the edge here between the two things, I'm just moving the entire thing, and that's how we can move things around. Let's finish off by talking about the actual shapes. So I'm going to click on the little corner here, press delete to delete it all. And finally, let's go to Insert, and we'll just say Shapes. So I'm going to insert a rounded rectangle here. It looks very nice. And I'm going to drag out a rounded rectangle. And what I like about shapes is that you can type right into them. I'm going to say Shapes. And let's highlight the text by double clicking it. Let's increase the font size to, we'll say 50, and press Enter. And if you highlight the text by double clicking it, you can center it as well. Now recall, in the Home tab, you can also center vertically, which is the middle align button here. So this is very nice. Now if you actually go to the Format tab, remember that you can actually choose some nice templates here. If I were to choose this very funky text here, you can change the text as well. You can change the shape fill. So if I were to hit this little drop down box, there's other nice shadow templates here. I'll just choose this one here, which looks pretty good. In fact, you can even customize your own. You can even use your own gradients and textures and pictures, and you can go pretty funky, but I'm just going to stick with the default templates that I'm provided with, and you can immediately have beautiful shapes. You can click on the edge of it to move it around. You can resize it by dragging a corner. You can rotate it as well. Press Ctrl Z. And in fact, when we're using the rounded rectangle tool, we can even click on this yellow square, which affects the curvature or the radius of this imaginary circle here in this corner. So hopefully you found this tutorial insightful, and thanks for subscribing and liking. In this Excel 2013 tutorial, let's investigate cell styles. Cell styles. This idea is the same as in Microsoft Word. It's the idea where when you actually click on a certain cell and you apply a cell style, you automatically get a certain look. You can see there's many different looks here. I'm just going to click on heading 1, and I'm going to make some of my hobbies, Excel, math, sleeping. I'll just choose the cell styles, heading 1, as well as sleeping is another cell style, heading 1. I'll make this heading 1. Imagine having a huge document
where you have hundreds of different headings and subheadings, and you want to make a change in the look, in the style of the presentation, of whether it be the font size, the color, the underlines, the background colors. Is there a fast way of changing it rather than manually changing every single instance of your many different hobbies? And the answer is yes. So what we can do to change the look of this is you can actually go to Cell Styles. You can right click whichever type of heading it is, right click it and modify it. So I'm going to modify this style and then go to Format. And say you want to fill it with the color yellow. Say you want to change the border. You want to have a black border outlining the whole thing. So I'm going to click on Outline. And what if you want to change the font? Let's just choose some other random serif font here. I'm going to bold italicize it and choose a very large font, 36. When I click OK and then OK, you see that I successfully applied the cell style to all instances of my heading 1s. And if it looks a little bit messed up here, you just have to drag between column A and B to make it a bit bigger, and you can see that throughout your entire document we have successfully applied heading 1. So the idea of cell styles is to help you make changes in the look of your document very quickly, and of course if your document is very short, it's probably not going to save you that much time, and it's good to stay organized especially if you're a neat freak. However, this is more useful especially when you're dealing with larger files. Let's practice a basic Excel macro in Excel 2013. Now, the idea of a macro is to automate certain steps to save you some time. Ideally, you'd learn some keyboard shortcuts to do the work quickly. As well, you may even learn some scripting within Excel, and there's actually a whole profession of coding relating to Excel using Visual Basic for applications, which is a high-paying industry. But for now, let's just introduce the basics. Let's begin by recording a macro. You go to View, and you can see there's a little drop-down arrow here in Macros, and you can see all the macros by going to View Macro. We see nothing here. So let's go View, Record Macro. Now, right now, we're recording a macro. We'll just call it Macro 4. And you can call it whatever you wish. We need to use a shortcut letter here. I'll just use a letter Q, Control Q. Click on OK. So right now, we are recording. So there's a stop button here. So be careful. Don't actually click anywhere. Otherwise, Excel will always click on that cell. So I don't want to actually click on any cell, otherwise the macro effect would apply only to that cell. I'm going to change the formatting. I'm going to press a keyboard shortcut called Control-Shift-F. Control-Shift-F. It opens up the Format Cells dialog. I'm going to change the font to bold italic, and I'll make this fill color, change the fill, I'll make it orange. Click on OK. So I successfully changed the format. Now I will type in the word macro. Now this is important. You can't just press stop here. It won't work until you actually confirm what you entered. So I'm going to press enter. So I entered it. So now when I go back to the macro, I'm going to stop recording, or you can press stop here in the bottom left corner. And now we have successfully stopped recording. So when I go back to my macro, I can view the macros, and you can see macro 4 is there. I'm going to cancel. And what macro 4, if I click on some other cell, what macro 4 does is when I press Control Q, it very quickly draws what I had before. Now obviously this is not the ideal example of a macro, but we're just introducing the basics. This here, I could simply copy a cell and also paste it
preserving the formatting, but just for the sake of using a macro, I'm just going to press Control Q, Control Q. You may even draw a nice pretty picture for fun if you have lots of time to kill. So to finish off this introductory idea of macros, I'm going to hit the drop down box and click on View Macros, and I'm going to click on Edit. You may see some kind of Microsoft Visual Basic for Applications Visual Basic coding up here, and this is becoming more like a programming type job to understand this, so this is beyond the scope of a beginner's tutorial, but this is where you can always close it, hit that X button and go back. So hopefully you found this video useful as an introductory step to macros.
Let's play around with a new Excel 2013 feature called Quick Analysis. Type in some information here. We have different athletes of different ages and with different speeds. And I'm going to highlight all this information, not like this, but just what I need. And right away you see an icon appear in the bottom right corner. Control Q, or just click on this little button here. It's called Quick Analysis. And as soon as I click on this, you can very quickly play with different things. You can play with the formatting. So for example, you want to visually see some things such as data bars, color scale, icon sets. You can even see things that are greater than, less than. This is like conditional formatting. And you can even clear the format. Charts. If I click on charts, if you can choose various charts. These are all things that we could have done before, but it's just very readily available. If I choose a scatter chart, for example, and then I see there's a correlation between the age and the speed. You can see it's fairly correlated. The greater the speed, the greater the age of the athlete, in general, there's a correlation with the greater the speed. And just like inserting a chart before, if you go to the Design tab, click on Quick Layout, you can even find a layout that has nice titles, such as the title up here, which you can change, as well as the axis titles on the sides. Let me click here and press Delete. So this Quick Analysis tool allows you to play with many things. You can click on the totals, so you can find the sum very quickly. Let's press Ctrl Z to undo. And you can even make a table. This is just like before. There was a Format as Table button in the Home tab. And you can even play with little spark lines. So if I were to create spark lines, it just hits it on the side over there. And spark lines are mini charts placed into single cells, and you see there's a downward trend representing the number from age going down to speed going downwards. So this Quick Analysis button is not anything that we haven't had before, the power to create, but it's just quite convenient. The fact that when you highlight the data, you can just very quickly analyze it using very readily available buttons here.
Let's understand the SUMIF function in Excel. Say we want to find the total sales for each type of car. We have a bunch of cars here, Hondas, BMWs, and I wish I had one of these, Mercedes. And we sold 5 Hondas here, and we also sold 2 Hondas here. How can we quickly find the total number of Honda sales? Well, this one here is pretty trivial, but imagine your list was very long. In this case, to solve this problem of finding total sales for each type of car, we use equals SUMIF bracket. So the range, these are the things that we're looking for, and in this entire list, we're looking for, comma, the criteria. Double quotes, Honda. So we're looking for the text Honda, comma, what we actually want to add up. We want to sum the number of items sold. So I'm going to highlight this range here, which corresponds to this list over here, and then I'm going to close off the bracket and press enter. So you can see here that we actually total the number of Honda sales. Here's the Honda, which is 5, Honda, which is 2, which is 7, and we have another Honda here, which is 8. 7 plus 8 is indeed 15. And what I like about functions is that as you change the values, if I change this to a 10, for example, from 5 to 10, and I press enter, your SUMIF formula will automatically update. So let's try that one more time. Say we want to find the total number of BMW sales. That's BMW 3 here and BMW 7 here. We know the answer should be 10, so let's give it a try. I'm going to type in total BMW sales. Let me just make this text a little bit smaller so that we can see what we're doing here. And I'll put the SUMIF answer over here in this cell. Equals SUMIF bracket. Here's my cars, comma, the actual criteria, and that's going to be BMW within double quotes, comma, and here's the actual numbers I want to sum or add up. Here's my close bracket, and I shall press enter. And you can see indeed we have the correct answer. Excellent. Let's practice the AVERAGEIF function in Excel. We use this function when we're trying to find the average sold for each type. For example, if we have cars, say we want to find the average sold for BMWs. So we see there's BMWs, 2 sold on here, and we have 6 sold over here. So if I type in here, equals AVERAGEIF bracket, and then here's the range, these are the cars I'm looking at, comma, the criteria here is BMW, comma, what we're trying to average, the numbers we're trying to average. So I'm going to highlight these numbers here and press enter. So what we have here for this AVERAGEIF formula is the answer 4. And if you look at all the BMWs, 2 and 6, the average is actually 4. 2 plus 6 is 8. Divided by the number of items, which is 2, we get 4. So this is making sense. Let's try it one more time. What if we want to find the average sold for Mercedes? Equals AVERAGEIF, comma, bracket, the range of cars, comma, the criteria being double quote, Mercedes, comma, the numbers we want to actually average. So press enter, and we have the number 5. And if you look at the Mercedes, we have 6, 1, and 8. 6 plus 1 is 7, 7 plus 8 is 15. We have 3 Mercedes entries over here. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Let's practice the concatenate function in Excel. The word concatenate means to add together. Imagine we have an area code and we want this to be pieced together nicely. So here we want the full area code, the full number. So what I'm going to do is type in equals concatenate. I'm going to choose this one here, concatenate, and I'm going to concatenate this one here, A4, which is the 604 number, comma, this phone number over here. I'm going to press enter. And what we have here is we have these two different pieces of information stuck together. That's what concatenating is about. Now we don't have to type in the full function concatenate. So I'm going to actually press delete and I'm going to retry this. I'm going to type in equals and I'm going to click here on this cell and I'm going to use the ampersand symbol. And this is the same thing as concatenate. I'm going to click on the second phone number and now I'm going to press enter. And you can see it does the exact same thing. Now I do want to see one more hyphen here. So what I'll do here is go back up to this formula bar, and I'm gonna actually add so the word ampersand means also we want to add double quote. I'm going to add a little dash, double quote, ampersand. So we're going to connect these three parts together. The first part is the area code, A4, and we're going to connect a dash, which is contained within double quotes, and then finally we're going to attach it to, concatenate it with B4, which is the full number. Now let me press enter. So you can see that we actually piece it together very nicely. We have a nice phone number here. I'm going to use AutoFill. AutoFill, you see that black plus sign there? Click and drag to do the same thing with all these all in one shot very quickly. Very nice. Now, of course, if we wanted to try something else, we don't have to use the simple dash. What I could do is I could use a right square bracket, which looks like this. And if we want to add another left bracket, we can simply say equals, and I will type in the left bracket, and I will concatenate it. So let's try the double quote, left bracket, double quote, ampersand, which means concatenate with the A4. So now I have 4 parts to this equation. Press enter. You can see that we are successfully piecing together different parts. And of course, if you want a space after the bracket, you can even type in a little space here. So let me just erase these things over here so I'm not confused. I can click back up here, and after the second curly brace, the curly bracket, I'm going to press space and then press enter. And you can see there's a nice space over here. So whether you're working with names and you want to piece together names, whether you're working with phone numbers or part numbers, concatenating can come in very handy. Let's practice some text functions. We begin with left. Imagine we have a name Bob Smith. If I click here and I type in equals left bracket, and the text being Bob Smith, so I'm going to click here on this cell, comma, the number of characters I want from the left. If I type in 3 and bracket, press enter, you can see that I get the first 3 letters from the left. Press enter. We get the word Bob, B-O-B. Now if I were to retype this, equals left, this text here in A3, comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I were to type in 6, I would get the first 6 letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where space is considered a character. Let's try right. Equals right. And let's try this being the text, comma, the number of characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 characters, and I'm going to press enter. And we have the word Smith. 5 characters from the right. Now let's try the mid function. Let's try A, B, C, D, E, F. And I'm going to type in equals mid bracket, this being the text, and I want the starting number to be, say, 2, and the number of characters to be 3. So let's see what happens. So we start at position 2. This is A, B, so that's 1, 2. So we start at position 2, and we chose three characters. We wanted to have 3 characters long being the result. So let's try it again. Equals mid, this being my text. This time I'm going to start at position, we'll say 4, and I want 2 characters. So can you guess the result? 1, 2, 3, 4 is my starting point, and I want 2 characters long. 1, 2, which is D, E. So let me try it again. Equals mid, this being my text. I want to start at position 1, and I want 4 characters long. Press enter, and you can see that the mid function is pretty flexible. It can even give you the result similar to other functions such as left. Let's try the find function now. Equals find. We want to find a space. There's a space here somewhere within this text here, A3, and I'm going to press enter. So it found a space in position 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where the space is. Now, how is this find function useful for finding working with other functions? So previously, when we wanted to find the first name here, we typed in equals left, and this being the text, comma, we knew the answer was 3. But what if we don't know how long each person's name is? We want Excel to automatically figure it out for us. We can't assume that the first person's name is 3 characters long. This is where, instead of typing in the number 3, we can use the find function. So what we're going to do here is we're going to type in find. We're going to search for a space within double quotes. Within what text? Within this same text. So these red brackets here, the find function here, this represents the number 3. But we have a little bit of a problem here, which we'll see in just a sec. So this is pretty close. If I press enter, we get the word Bob, which because we successfully found the space. Now secretly, we have a little bit of an error here. If I go back up to the formula bar and I type in the ampersand, this here is going to add the result with, and I'm going to just put within double quotes, blah. Okay, so here, if I press enter, you can see that because the result was Bob, and I use the ampersand symbol, which concatenates or adds the text blah to the end, we see that we're adding on the extra space. So if we don't want to add on the extra space, let's just modify this function here a little bit. So instead of returning the position, find the space, we want to find the position of the space -1. This find function here will return 4, the number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where the space is. But if you only want the first 3 characters and you don't want the space, you'll have to subtract 1. So right after the red bracket, I'm going to type in -1. And now press enter. So you can see here that we successfully ripped out the first word based on finding that space. And if I were to get rid of this addition here and press enter, we have successfully cleanly ripped off the first name. Excellent.
Let's explore the Excel Go-To feature. So in Excel, you can press F5. And when you press F5, a little box pops up. And what's nice about this box is that I can type in some label, some name box label, period 5. So I have a number of different students in this class here, and I can jump straight to period 5. I have all these students, different classes here, and it's quite long, and I have to do a lot of scrolling. And to minimize scrolling, I could just jump by pressing F5, and I can click on period 3, for example, and click OK, and it jumps to period 3. Now, how did we know that it's going to jump here? When I clicked here, I actually typed into this nice name box. So normally, the name box, if you click on a certain cell, is simply the column and the row. So when I click here, I get column H, row 40. However, if you want this to have a special name, you just click into the name box and you type in some nice name. Now be careful you don't type in a name that's too short. For example, if I call this P3 and press enter, it's going to be confused because Excel will simply jump to column P, row 3. So your name has to be a little bit longer than usual, or you shouldn't somehow choose a name that's not going to be confusing with simple columns and rows. So the go-to feature, just remember that
we press F5 to have the box pop up, and this go to feature works hand in hand with us actually renaming the actual name box defaults, which has the column and rows. Now, the key idea is that it saves time as you're navigating throughout your workbook, and of course you can always resort to using your arrow keys up, down, left, right, and if you even practice some keyboard shortcuts, you can press home, or you can even try pressing page up or page down, which is pretty fast. And there are some other keyboard shortcuts that we can also talk about in some other video. So remember the go-to feature by pressing F5. In this Excel 2013 tutorial, let's focus on formatting particular text a certain color. So in this Republican convention, we have different famous guests. However, Obama and his twin brother are trying to get in, but they've been blacklisted. I'm going to highlight these student names, and I'm going to be applying some conditional formatting. So click here in the Home tab, and we're going to apply some highlight cell rules for text that contains. So if the text contains the last name Obama, then this convention unfortunately is not quite favorable to these people with this last name, Democrats in particular. So here we can see that the text that we're looking for is Obama, and it doesn't really matter if it's uppercase or lowercase, so I'll just type in lowercase just to show you that this is the case. And by default it's light red, and you can see it's already highlighted, but let's just change it to something of our own. I'm going to go to custom format, and I'm going to choose a nice fill color. You can just choose red for rejected, and if you want to be fancy, you can even change the fill effects to some kind of shaded version. So I'm just going to go red, that's my color 1, and orange. And let's just go buck wild here. Diagonal sounds interesting. I'm going to click on OK. So this is the OK button is down here. And so we have a nice custom fill color. I'm going to change the font color to bold. And I think that'll be good. So let's just click on OK. And OK. So there we go. We can see it's very customized. We have this nice flagged last name. Alright, next challenge is to apply to this data these different student grades, icons, data bars, and we're going to fill in the color, the background color of these cells that achieve a 90% or greater. So let's do that. Let's highlight this information here. These are the student grades, and go to conditional formatting, and let's look at these icon sets. There's a bunch of different icon sets, quite interesting. I'll just use this one here. These look like stoplights. Green meaning higher, red meaning lower. So I'm going to just choose this. Quite interesting. Data bars. So let's go to conditional formatting, and we can even have data bars. And you can have shaded ones. You can have solid fills. Quite interesting. I'll just choose this one for now, solid fill. Now these data bars kind of remind me of sparklines, but these data bars is applied to a group of information where you're comparing them relative to one another. Whereas sparklines, this is the way it works. I'm going to go to Insert. Sparklines are over here beside the charts. If I choose column, for example, it's going to ask me where I want the sparklines to be placed. So I'm going to place it down here underneath everything and click on OK. Sparklines is more about summarizing in one cell a group of information, whereas here the data bars are actually just placed within each individual item and showing the relative performance right within that cell. So let me just press Ctrl Z to forget about the sparklines for now. Let's apply one more conditional formatting. Conditional formatting, we'll say that we'll go to highlight cell rules. If the student gets greater than, we'll just say 90, 90, and then we're going to highlight the background yellow. So let's go to custom format and choose the fill color to yellow, and then click on OK, and then OK. So you can see that a number of things are going on here, and it's getting quite messy. So there's this nice option to stop processing these formatting rules. These bars, these green lights, these icons, these conditional formattings brings particular attention visually, but sometimes it can get overwhelming, so it's good that we can actually stop these rules. So with this data selected, you must have this selected. If we go to conditional formatting and manage rules, you can see that there's a certain order of the three different rules applied, whether it's greater than 90, whether we have the data bar or the icons, and it applies to this highlighted range. We could stop the formatting, the additional formatting, immediately if it's true. So that's the case. If we want to stop right away after it's colored yellow, we can click on this little checkbox here, and these two additional formatting rules will no longer apply. In fact, if you click on one of these rules and you hit the down arrow, you can change the priority so that you can say, no, I want my data bars to be the first thing that's formatted, and I want to stop right here if it's done. Now actually this ability to stop this data bar rule does not apply, because it's something that is always shown. It's displayed. It's just showing the actual percentage as to how big this number is compared to the others. So when it comes to being able to choose whether you can stop or not, it has to be something that is based off a clear condition, such as if the cell value is greater than 90 or 70 or 60. So if you create your own custom rule using some kind of conditional, then you'll have the ability to select this stop or not. So I'm just going to leave this at the top here. Going to click on this, move it up, and I want to stop as soon as it's colored yellow. I don't want to bother adding these additional criteria. And one other interesting thing here is that when we choose this option, you can edit the rule. Let's go to edit the rule, and you can see there's different rule types, and this one here is format only cells that contain. And what's nice about this is that you can also change the condition rule for the cell value, not only greater than, but also greater than or equals to. And usually a definition of an A is 90 or above, so we'll just choose that as the rule, greater than or equal to 90. Click on OK, and click on apply or OK, and you can see that for these two wonderful students, Elizabeth and James, they did get an A, and notice how their cells are automatically conditioned to be yellow, but the icons and the data bars do not apply because we stopped the formatting. So the wonderful thing about Excel is it visually allows you to see things in a clear manner and not to be overwhelmed with information. And furthermore, if you change the information, if Elizabeth here dropped down on the final to a 75, you can see that all the conditional formatting automatically updates and shows it to be the way it should be. Just wanted to share with you an Excel gradebook template for teachers. You can download this file at 1drv.ms/N5 Q U JF. This here is a J. Okay, so I just want to highlight some points here. What you have here is a gradebook, and what we have here is math. And notice how this Math 8 block is in pink. As you scroll down, you can use 2 fingers on your touchpad to scroll down. You can visually see this color for a Math 10 block is different color, so you can quickly find it visually. And this here is blue. Wonderful. What else do we have here that's interesting? We have last names, first names, we have student numbers, phone numbers, ELL. Some schools require that you have to designate whether your students are ELL or not, and
this summary view is very useful. I love Excel because it's pretty quick to access information at a glance in terms of all your students. I do also use Evernote for some other details and log with parents, but it's kind of nice to have an overview of academic performance. If they have a textbook, it's nice to have everything in one shot as opposed to always having to hunt around for different papers. Okay, so what we have here is chapter tests at a summary view right away. It's nice to have that. We have some cumulative results. We have some quizzes, and of course the quiz average here is based off these quizzes. And I'm going to scroll down here. And what I have here for these tests, as I type in the numbers here, is I actually go to conditional formatting and go to color scales. And by choosing this first option, you get a very quick visual way of seeing how your students are doing, whether they're improving or whether they're getting worse over time. And this is really nice to visually see how your students are progressing. And of course, it's nice to see the class average. And relating to that, if you teach the same course in more than one block, you can kind of get a sense of how the class is doing as a whole. And here we have the average of this grade 10 class, and we also have the average of this grade 10 class. And what I have here is a summary average for all the tests for all my grade 10s, and this is kind of low, so you get a sense of whether you should make the future test a bit easier or not, just to make it fair year to year. And of course, if you're held to some objective standard, such as a standardized test or some state exam, that you can always get a sense of how hard you should make a test to be in line with the historic average of your school. I have this nice line here just to confirm whether you've taken attendance for that day. It's nice to remember things so that the office can be happy with your attendance taking and for the safety of the students. Okay, so is there anything else here? This here, in terms of the number of students in your class, is based off a formula here, is equals to count A. So as you add more students, as you insert more rows, this hopefully should automatically update. You can see these classes are pretty full at 30. And I should also mention that what we have here is columns A and B are frozen. These two columns are frozen such that as you add more information and you scroll all the way to the right here, you can see that because it's frozen, you can always remember which student you're talking about. This is great. And to freeze the panes, you go to View, Freeze Panes, and as you freeze panes, you just have to make sure that you're clicking near the top cell to be able to freeze just the ones you want. Let me just try that right now. So here I'm gonna click on C1, and I'm gonna go to freeze panes, and you can see this line gets dropped right here. So whatever cell you're on, the top left line drops down such that columns A and B are frozen. So other people might use different gradebook software, and the nice thing about those kind of software, sometimes the office staff automatically sends you a list of students, but it's very personal. As long as you report a final grade, it's up to you. What I like about Excel is the visual colorization of these grades. You can track the progress. You can get a sense of how hard you should make a test by just analyzing the ongoing average updates of your classes. And of course, as you get to learn the powerful features of Excel using macros and whatnot, you can make Excel into a quite a complicated and powerful program that does a lot of processing. And of course, if you have some additional information you want to just keep at a reference, you can always add more information on a second worksheet. You can also have a different workflow depending on what works for you. I use Evernote to keep track of parent-teacher interactions, and hopefully you found this video interesting.
And of course you can download the file here. Just leave me a comment if you liked it. Let's try getting multiple graphs on one chart. You can see that we have some information here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. We have a number of units of work completed. You can see that we as a team can get some work done, and we have staffing hours. So generally we want to show visually that the less the staff there are, generally less work as the team outputs as a total. So once you have your information typed in as follows, you highlight the information and you go to Insert, and you could click on Recommended Charts, and you go to All Charts and then go to Combo. So this way you can see that we are getting multiple graphs on one chart. If I just click on OK, and you can see that we have this nice chart here that visually shows, I'm just going to resize the corner here, visually shows that as there are less staffing, which is the orange line here, generally there is less work completed. Now what's interesting here is that this orange line is a little bit high. So if you want it a little bit lower, something you might consider is to use a secondary axis. So let me just click on this chart and press delete and try this again. So I'm going to go to Insert, and you can go to Recommended Charts and click on the All Charts, or let me just try it a different way. Let me just click on this little drop down See All Charts button and then go to All Charts. So this is just another way of doing it. And go to Combo, and let's see what happens if you click on this secondary axis. So if I click on secondary axis for this staffing hours, you can see that staffing hours is a little bit higher than the number of units of work completed. You can see there's a secondary axis on the side here. So what ended up happening, because we have a different axis that we're going by, is that this orange line is pulled down closer to the graph, which could be good and bad. Visually it may look good because you can see the correlation here between the bar graph and the line graph. However, it might cause some confusion, because when we're looking at these numbers, you might be confused as to whether you should look at the left numbers or the right numbers. So generally I probably would not use this because it causes some confusion. So just a little word of note here, if you're trying to practice this for yourself, is as you're building up these days, Monday, Tuesday, you probably should highlight the first two values and just use AutoFill. Click on the bottom right corner, you see the black plus sign, drag to get this done quickly. And I'm just going to reproduce the same graph going the other way, sideways. I'm going to switch the rows and columns and just show you that it still works. So what I have here is I'm going to highlight the days, and then one thing you can try here is you can just highlight this, press Ctrl C to copy, right click, and you can even choose this transpose paste option, which is the fourth option in Excel 2013. I'm going to transpose this, and you can see it's done quite quickly. So here's the work, and here's the staffing hours, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice my copying and pasting and transpose skills again. Now we could copy this one column here and transpose it towards rows by right clicking and choosing this option, but I'm just going to highlight both of these columns, press Ctrl C, and right click and transpose them together all in one shot. So what we've done essentially here is we've switched the rows and columns, and let's see if this still works here. I'm going to highlight this information, and I'm going to go to Insert, I'm going to go to Recommended Charts, All Charts, go to Combo, and you can see that it still works. Click on OK, and we have this nice chart title, which you can stretch out by pulling the sides. You can even hold the Shift button when you're resizing it to resize it in proportion. So for single graphs, we have a label on one row here and just one item here for the column, but to have multiple graphs on one chart, we simply add a row here, and similarly if you want to work switching the rows and columns, It's simply a matter of adding that extra column over here. Let's practice this function called HLOOKUP. If you're familiar with VLOOKUP, this should be quite easy to understand, so I recommend you understand VLOOKUP first. The letter H stands for horizontal, whereas the letter V for VLOOKUP stands for vertical. So this is essentially the same function as VLOOKUP, except we just have to think horizontally. So imagine we have some information. Most of us are familiar with the idea of being graded. So if you receive a grade of 0%, you generally fail. If you receive a grade of 50, we'll just say you pass. And if you receive a grade of 80, you get a B. And if you hit the 90 threshold, you get a grade of A. Notice how this information, this lookup table, is organized horizontally. If this information was sorted going down vertically, we would use the VLOOKUP. So let's see how this works. The information here for this lookup table must be sorted in ascending order. Ascending means generally increasing, and you can see that the numbers 0, 50, 80, 90 are getting bigger and bigger. They're ascending, so this is correct. So we did it properly. So we'll say that we have a student named AAA, BBB, CCC. The parents of these children weren't particularly creative, so here are the students' names. Now what about their grades? We'll say the first student skipped every class and received a grade of 35. We'll say the second student received a grade of 73. And we'll say the final student was an overachiever and received a grade of 95. Let's see what kind of grades, letters, they receive. So what we'll do here is click on this cell or anywhere. We're going to type in equals HLOOKUP bracket. And you can see that we have nice hints here, the lookup value. The value that we're interested in looking up to see the corresponding letter grade is 35. So I'm going to click on this one here, 35, and it gives me J3. J, column J, row 3 is this cell here, comma, table array. So where is that lookup table? It's here. So I'm going to click on D3, drag all the way to G4, make sure it's all selected here. And you can see that we're interested in this table D3 colon G4, comma, and what row index are we interested in? What row? Are we interested in spitting back this row 3, or are we interested in spitting back row 4? We already have the number 35. We're not interested in this row up here. We're interested in the actual letter grade, or the actual word, fail or pass, or B or A. So we're going to return this row index, the row index of 2. So the first row, row index of 1, would be the first row, and the second row would have a row index of 2. So you can see that 35 falls into this first category, and the row that is spit back is fail. So this is correct. Now a lot of people would actually try to use AutoFill by clicking on this and move to the bottom right, and there's a black plus sign there. Click, left click and drag, and you can see that something weird happens. Even if we make this wider, the results are incorrect. What's going on here? I'm going to press Control Z or Control Z to undo. And the key here is, when we have this nice HLOOKUP formula, is that this lookup table needs to be locked in. What's happening is Excel is using the idea of relative cell referencing, so that every time we autofill, this formula here is looking at this information, and it's looking at this lookup table, and it's shifting down automatically. That's a topic for another day, so let's just try to fix this up. How do we lock this table into place? Let's click on this formula here. I'm going to click up here in the formula bar, and D3 to G4, these values here, D3 to G4, is this actual table. So I'm going to lock it into place, make it absolute rather than relative by using these dollar signs. So I'm going to press dollar sign there, dollar sign there, dollar sign, and press enter. So what we essentially did here is we use the same formula, but we locked this table into place. So now I can use autofill. I can drag it down, pow, 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 and you can see here that student BBB passed. And this here particularly saves time when there's a lot of students. And as you change the students' grades, if I change a 73 to a 99, you can see that the student B gets an A now automatically. Everything adjusts properly, which is excellent. Now we should pay attention to the extreme cases here. What if the first student gets a 79? The student passes. And so here, according to the VLOOKUP table, the HLOOKUP table, the grade of 80 is the threshold. So as soon as they get an 80 on the dot, that's when they achieve the next milestone. That's when they achieve the next level. They receive a B. So let's finish off this tutorial by taking this table and just showing you how similar this is to the VLOOKUP. So if I were to right click and copy this, or Control C, I can right click and I can paste it, and we can even paste it using the transpose option right here, which is the fourth option. And you can see that this here is your standard VLOOKUP table, and we would use the actual VLOOKUP formula. So if I were to just copy this information here, Control C, Control V, and we want to get the grades, I would type in equals VLOOKUP, bracket, the lookup value is 35, comma, the table would be over here. And of course you can click up into the formula bar and you can lock in that table if you wish with dollar signs. And comma, I want to spit back the second column. And so press enter and you can see that we also have the correct message. So the reason why we're using HLOOKUP is because we're dealing with actual rows rather than columns. So when we choose this HLOOKUP formula, the question here is which row do we want to sit back? And that's because we're thinking horizontally. Let's learn how to save our own template. So here in Excel 2013, when you open your Excel program, you'll see the start screen. If you click on Personal over here, you'll see your own templates. I created this template called Big Cells, and it's a fast way of starting with nice big fat cells. Now what if you were to color this, just a random workbook, and change your font to comic and make everything a bit bigger? So I'm going to call this My Template. I'm going to go to File, Save As, click on the Browse button, and the key is that you can actually, instead of saving it as an Excel workbook, you can save it as an Excel template. And when you save it as an Excel template, it's going to be in a special folder, Custom Office Templates, such that when you open Excel, you can actually find your templates. So I'm going to call this blah, very imaginative name there, and I'm going to save it. Now the key is that if you save this in a folder other than this folder, you're not going to see your templates when you open Excel. So let's save this into that special default folder, and now when I close it, File, I'll go to Close. So I'm going to go File, New, and when you go to File, New, you'll see that there's this Personal button again. You can see there's the new blah template. I feel very professional now that I can access my own templates within the Start menu. So I click on blah, ta-da, there's your nice template. Now of course you don't have to use Excel templates. It just so happens that when you go File, New, it's nice to be able to click on this Personal button and quickly find your templates, as opposed to searching through some file folder where you have to remember where you save your files. One last note is when you go to File, New, you will see your templates. However, if you press Control N, which is a shortcut key for New Workbook, I'm going to press Control N, it's going to open up a blank default workbook without even going to the start screen. So the Control N keyboard shortcut automatically bypasses the start screen.
So how do you open a workbook automatically when Excel 2013 starts? Here I have book 1, and I change the column width as well as the row heights. I like it big so I can see these cells very clearly. So what I did here is I saved this file to my desktop, and then I drag it into this folder. Now the reason why I actually saved it first to my desktop is because I don't have the administrative privileges to save to this folder directly. This C program files, Microsoft Office, Office 15, Excel start folder. So I'm going to copy this and show you where these files are. So I'm going to click up here, and here I dragged it in from my desktop, and I have book 1 and I have book 2. I saved a separate file, also blank with large cells. Let's see what happens when I close Excel and I open up Excel again. So here I am opening Excel, and pam, right away, all the workbooks inside my Excel start folder are opened automatically. I have book 1 and book 2. This is great because I can jump straight to work without even seeing the start screen. Now for security reasons, you probably should leave this folder alone, but if you really want to be able to save directly, file save as right into this folder, let me show you the trick. So here's my Office 15 folder, and here is my Excel start folder. I'm gonna right click, go to properties, and go to security, and look for users. Here's users. Right now the full control and modify is not allowed, so we go to edit, and then we go to users. I'm using Windows 7 by the way, and we can set full control modify, well, full control, which checks everything automatically, and this should now allow you to save as straight to that folder. So remember that you can use the Excel start folder in your Office installation to open a workbook automatically.